Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and break down Bill Naughton's classic short story, 17 Oranges. But hey, we're not just going to treat this like a standard read-through. Oh no. We're looking at this as a high-stakes true crime heist. A heist where the loot is fruit, the detective is absolutely furious, and the evidence? Well, the evidence literally has to be swallowed. It's this incredibly fascinating look at opportunity, blind panic, and the sheer, extreme lengths we'll go to when our freedom is suddenly on the line.
Right out of the gate, we get this. He locked me up, and I have never eaten an orange again. I mean, what a hook, right? This brilliant opening confession instantly pulls us into the narrator's trauma. It shows us right away that petty theft can leave a literal lifelong mark. We know from the jump that things went terribly, terribly wrong, but the wild journey of exactly how a simple citrus fruit becomes the source of a lifelong phobia, that's exactly what makes this explainer so captivating. Phase 1, the setup. The modus operandi at the docks. To really wrap our heads around this crime, we first have to set the scene. Imagine the environment. Our opportunistic narrator drove a little pony and cart for the Swift Delivery Company. And honestly, this job was the perfect cover. It gave him incredible daily access to the bustling docks. You know, that enclosed area of water where those massive banana boats were constantly loading and unloading. He was in and out all day long. Now, he swears he wasn't a real thief, just a guy picking up what happened to fall. But let's be real, he absolutely knew how to work his surroundings. Which brings us to his absolute best tool of the trade, an apron. But we're not talking about your standard kitchen apron here. This was a massive, custom-made protective garment tied securely at the back. He literally crafted this thing himself, specifically for hiding fallen fruit. So, when his buddies kicked a bunch of bananas off the boat, he'd just scoop them up, stash them under this giant apron, and happily munch away all day. But here's the kicker. While he liked bananas well enough, he absolutely loved oranges. And that little preference, that's what sets the stakes for this whole crazy story. Phase 2. The mastermind. Clem Jones' careful planning. Now, what's super fascinating here is the stark contrast between two criminals operating in the exact same spot. On one hand, you've got the opportunist. That's our narrator, who acts purely on impulse, right? Just scooping up whatever happens to hit the floor. But on the other hand, we have the planner, Clem Jones. Clem does not wait for things to fall. He scripts out every single move with these elaborate mastermind tricks. It perfectly highlights how the narrator's total lack of a real plan becomes his ultimate downfall, while Clem is playing 3D chess. Just take Clem's brilliant cat and cheese trick. This is genius. Clem pulls this incredible bait and switch on Pongo the policeman. He struts out, carrying a box, casually claims there's a cat inside, and when Pongo inevitably forces him to open it, boom, a real ship's cat jumps out and bolts. Clem fakes being absolutely furious, chases the cat all the way back into the docks, and returns a bit later clutching that same box super tightly. Pongo just chuckles and lets him stroll right on past. But when Clem gets home, he pops up in the box to reveal he'd actually smuggled out a massive, heavy Dutch cheese. I mean, a flawlessly executed heist. Phase 3, the blunder. Caught by Pongo. So while Clem is out here pulling off elaborate cheese heists, our narrator suffers an incredibly unfortunate wardrobe malfunction and gets caught totally red-handed, literally discovered in the very act. How does it happen? The string on his trusty, custom-made apron suddenly snaps, and all of a sudden, Pongo the policeman notices that the narrator's trouser pockets are bulging out suspiciously. Pongo just grabs him right by the collar and drags him straight into a nearby cabin. Game over. Once inside that locked cabin, Pongo empties the narrator's pockets and places exactly 17 highly incriminating oranges right onto the table. Just picture that for a second. Count them in your head. 17. That is not a casual midday snack. That is a massive, undeniable haul of stolen goods. The evidence was quite literally piled up into a mountain right in front of him. Pongo, of course, starts accusing him of stealing and concealing the fruit, demanding an explanation. But our narrator, he is terrified. He's spiraling, worrying about losing his job, getting thrown in prison, and what on earth his father is going to say. But having read a ton of detective novels, he knew better than to start blabbing. He knew revealing anything thoughtlessly was a terrible idea. He remembered the golden rule. Anything you say may be used as evidence against you. So he just kept his mouth firmly shut. Not a peep. Phase 4. The cover-up. Destroying the evidence. Okay, so here is the absolute crucial turning point. Pongo, beyond frustrated by this silent treatment,
locks the door, and steps out to grab another policeman to act as a witness for court. Put yourself in that locked cabin for just 1 second. What do? You are totally alone with the stolen goods, literally moments away from a guaranteed prison sentence. The walls are closing in, your apron is broken, those 17 bright oranges are glaring at you from the table, and pure, unadulterated panic is taking over.
Suddenly, an inner voice speaks to him, offering the only chaotic, terrifyingly logical solution to the problem. Eat the oranges. Eat the evidence. I mean, it's an insane proposition, right? 17 large oranges. But in a state of absolute back-against-the-wall desperation, the human mind finds a way. Eat them, the voice said, and the evidence simply ceases to exist. And wow, did this frantic cover-up process escalate quickly. Step 1. He starts out just peeling and eating the fruit normally. But time is ticking and it's just not fast enough. So, step 2. The voice tells him he has to eat everything. The pips, the peel, all of it. Finally, in pure, unfiltered desperation for step 3, he whips out a pocket knife, hacks the remaining oranges into giant chunks, and just starts swallowing them at incredibly high speed, totally bypassing the need to even chew. His inner voice was demanding absolute, rigorous perfection. He couldn't just enjoy the sweet parts. He had to consume the pips, those hard, bitter little seeds inside the fruit. Because think about it, if even one single pip or one tiny scrap of orange peel was left behind on that table, it was proof. Just one seed meant prison. He was literally turning his own digestive system into a high-speed crime scene cleanup crew. By now, his stomach is nearing the bursting point, and absolute, paralyzing terror sets in. He hears Pongo right outside. He freezes. There were still exactly 3 whole oranges sitting on the table. Oh man, he was going to get caught. All of that incredibly painful, frantic eating was going to be for absolutely nothing. But then, a miraculously lucky delay saves his skin. Pongo walks up to the cabin but stops for a second to chat with some cart drivers at the dock gate. This tiny, random distraction gave the narrator just a few extra agonizing minutes. He forcefully choked down the first of the 3, then the second. It was an absolute physical struggle, forcing those massive chunks down. And I kid you not, the very second the final piece of that last orange slid down his throat, the door began to open. Talk about a close call. Phase 5, the aftermath, the getaway, and the toll. The climax hits right here. Pongo and his witness stride proudly into the cabin, fully ready to book their thief and haul him off to court. Imagine Pongo's utter disbelief. He smugly points to the narrator, bragging about catching him with pockets full of oranges. But then, he looks at the table. It is completely empty. The other policeman sniffs the air and says, "I can smell them." And he could. The scent of 17 freshly cut oranges is hanging incredibly heavy in that tiny cabin. But visually, they have vanished into thin air. Pongo frantically searches everywhere. He checks the narrator's pockets. He inspects the broken apron. Absolutely nothing. The stolen goods were now perfectly concealed, kept entirely secret and completely hidden in the most unlikely and wildly uncomfortable hiding spot imaginable. The narrator's own stomach. Pongo kind of figures out what must have happened, but his brain simply cannot accept that a human being just inhaled 17 massive oranges, peels, pips, and all in a matter of minutes. It's just wild. And here is the harsh, frustrating, legal reality that Pongo had to swallow. No physical evidence means no prison. Pongo was absolutely livid. He screamed, he shouted, he lost his temper. But our narrator, he stuck to his rule and didn't utter a single word. Without that physical proof, despite the overwhelming, undeniable smell of citrus, Pongo legally had to let him walk. The narrator strolled out a completely free man. But he didn't escape punishment entirely, did he? For exactly 1 full week, he felt violently, terribly sick. Imagine it. 17 huge oranges, complete with bitter peels and hard pips, just constantly churning and working away in his stomach. He managed to evade the law, sure, but his body definitely paid a massive price. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I'll leave you to ponder this. Is the painful, agonizing gut ache of hiding your mistakes ever truly worth the getaway? When you desperately destroy the evidence just to escape the consequences, does the intense internal toll actually make you the real victim of your own crime? Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into 17 Oranges. It's a masterful, hilarious lesson in why sometimes it really is just better to leave the fruit on the ground.